So, we just watched the Final Fantasy XIV trailer. And it's pretty damn good. Pretty damn good as far as the trailer goes. Even though there was no gameplay involved whatsoever. But I can tell you about gameplay. Not legally. I can illegally tell you about gameplay. Because according to them, I was never involved in their beta test. And to say that I was involved in their beta test would constitute a violation of their terms of service. But it's really good. It's good. It's good shit. The major difference between the game Final Fantasy XIV and the game Final Fantasy XIV: A Realm Reborn is they have this awesome dungeon system. So you have goals. The problem with Final Fantasy XIV, in my mind, was that there was no reason to level. Like, you could level, but the only reason you were leveling was to get to max level. There was nothing to do at max level, just you got to max level. Good job. But in A Realm Reborn, there are dungeons. There are lots of dungeons. I've only played one of the dungeons, but I have seen the plans for multiple dungeons, so I assume that there will be dungeons throughout, including max level, hopefully focusing on max level. But the one that they had in the beta test was, or maybe did not have in the beta test, I have to say, I have to include the, none of the things I saw was actually what I saw. I wasn't in the beta test at all. It's a figment of my imagination, and I imagine that the dungeons were really freaking cool, and that they were timed, and that they had objectives in these timed dungeons, so that you'd have to do it more than one time to see everything in the dungeon. And that was really fun. It was quite a lot of fun, so that... Aaron, what was the cool thing about Final Fantasy XI?
The cool thing about Final Fantasy XI was the amount of replay value that it had, the amount of option that it gave you for customization. And when you did something right in the game, there was a sense of satisfaction. You knew that you did something right. You knew when you did something wrong. When you got to max level, and of course I'm talking about before recent revisions to the game, is that you want us to talk about some of the stuff that they have changed in Final Fantasy XI, which makes me really angry. But there was a reward system in the game for playing well, that trained the player to play their character very, very well, no matter which customization path they decided to go with. Whatever. There was a lot of elitists, and there was a lot of, you have to play it this way, otherwise we won't get you in a party, and blah, 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 blah. That was part of the problem with the game. What the game did really well is, though, it taught you how to play your character. Now they have made leveling really, really easy. They've raised the max level to 99, and I have actually seen someone get all the way from 0 to 99, having to do all of the quests that are required to level within 2 days. Not having to do those quests, you can do it in several hours now, and it is not nearly so painful. But you wind up with, now you have a lot of people that they don't know how to play. They don't know how to party. They don't know how to do a lot of things, and it's really, really frustrating. It feels a lot more like WoW.
What I wanted to talk about was the idea that the game teaches you your role really early on. And that was... I'm going to talk about early Final Fantasy XI. When you played the game, there was only one way to level back in the Dizzy, where you had to level in a party as early as level 10. At level 10, there was only one real way to level easily, and that was in a party in the Volcrum Dunes. So they taught you how the party system worked because you had to take a part in the party system, or else you wouldn't level. So they focused in on exactly what they wanted, which was a party system all the way through the game to enjoy the full experience. So the fact that you were forced to play within that party system early meant that you knew exactly what you were supposed to do throughout the game, and no one in late game was unaware of how they played. And that meant that they could tool, they could tweak, end game content to be as difficult as humanly possible to succeed. And then if you manage to pull off that end game content, you felt really good. There were promies back in the day where I pulled off exactly one promie of 3. Exactly one. And I felt like I was the biggest badass on the planet for doing the one of 3. And that's something that's lacking from modern day MMORPGs. The difficulty. It's just not there because they don't know how to train people to play the game correctly.
There are several points that I would like to bring up about this, and I apologize that I'm going to go that I have a lot of rant, as it were, for this game, because I've had some conversations with players comparing it to other games recently. But I'm going to hit on your point first. Of the game really trained the player, the old school, anyways, before they made some revisions, and which I am not thankful for. But the game, as it sat originally up through Ant Urgent, Chains of Promethea, and all of that, really, really did train the player. There was nobody at level 75, unless they paid somebody else to level their character, who wasn't good at the game. You didn't get to max level if you sucked. Period. End of story. It was impossible. So if you got somebody up there, I mean, there were people that were better than others, but everybody that got to level 75 knew their character inside out and backwards. It was impossible to get there without doing that. You had to, in order to get north of level 70, you had to solo fight a boss that fought tailor-made to fight against your class, and you had to win that fight in order to get, in order to beat the quest, in order to go north of level 70. And this is a game where you leveled as a party, and you had to go in there and you had to do it yourself. So unless you gave somebody else your information to sign in to do that fight for you, you were at least good enough to beat Matt. And that, I mean, like, that was actually a real test of skill. You actually had to know your character well. And even if you did everything right, you could still lose that fight. The other thing is it is one of the games where if you die, you lose experience. And if you lose experience, you can de-level. You can go back down in level. And we had a conversation recently with several players about that, and we all prefer that to equipment destruction, like in World of Warcraft, where you have to pay money as opposed to have to go back and go regain experience. De-leveling, losing experience at max level was preferable to the equipment destruction and having to pay to repair your armor. Is the general consensus on that one. Players seem to like that more. And that is something that the game did very well. Also, the community in Final Fantasy XI, still even to this day, with all the revisions, is one of the most friendly communities in MMO, online gaming, that I have encountered. If you have a question, you type it in all chats where anybody can read it, you will get no less than 5 responses that actually tell you what you need to know. That doesn't exist in gaming anywhere else that I have experienced.
I tested that being intense. Also, to the truth of that statement, I've played Final Fantasy XI both in the free-to-play capacity, which is a trial version, and in the pay-to-play capacity, which was back in the design. It's true. They're more willing to give up information because that information is harder to find. And they feel more important because they found that information and they know that information.
And that's all I have to say about the game. I do apologize for my rant. Yep.
I was just wondering about. It's kind of one of those host topics later on, but games in general. Are there any games out there that are still challenging and not like Dark Souls challenging, just frustrating?
No, sir, there are none. No, I would say a good example of that sort of game would be the Faster Than Light is a game that we've all experienced. Maybe not all of us, but John and I at least have experienced, and it's a very challenging game that's not like Dark Souls, brutal, kill you. It's sort of challenging.
Yeah, I could agree with that. Yeah.
The Witcher 2 is pretty hard. Like, yeah. If you're retarded, it's really hard. Well, it requires you to like prepare, like the combat in it. You need to prepare your like yourself before the battle, and you can't just like run in there swinging your sword like an absolute maniac because someone will just come up to you and stab you and you will die. So you have to be dodging a lot, and you have to have drunk potions before, and you have to try and figure out your strategy for that.
Huh. You've mentioned The Witcher 2 before. It's a really good game in your opinion?
Yeah. If you like RPGs.
I actually have heard of that being super difficult from idiots. From people who I would consider to be idiots, they have said that the game is super difficult. So I would say that it would be a very nice sweet spot for difficulty for your average, not idiot gamer. What else? Legend of Grimrock is actually super, super hard. In my opinion, that game is actually really hard.
Yeah.
I own that game. I have not played it.
I've played it several times and never gotten particularly far. As far as, my brain says it's not particularly far. I've got no basis for reference. So I could have been right next to the end of the game. I wouldn't know. I just fucking died.
There's that roguelike we played that was really good. We did it on your channel a while back.
Oh, Dungeons of Dreadmore.
Yeah, that was a good one. It was very good.
No idea where the end of that game is, or if there is an ending for that game. And we both, of course, died eventually because it's one of those games where you're supposed to eventually die.
Yeah, but if you play it right, you can last for a long time. I cleared like 3 or 4 levels once.
He was better at it than I was. I will be the first to admit.
I took a lot more time out of it. Is the only reason.
Blood Bowl. Blood Bowl's hard.
Is that difficult?
Blood Bowl's hard. Because characters perma-die in that game.
Oh, yeah.
Then you gotta maintain your shit. And, a bad die roll could wind up in the death of one of your best characters. And then you cry. And maybe...
Yeah, but that's luck. That's not like skill difficulty. Like, it's like you're not good at the game. It's just like you rolled the dice and then you died.
Well, you can get extra die rolls, re-rolls, apothecaries. There's all sorts of shit you can get to mitigate the effect of the die roll. So there's some skill involved. You just got to be smart about it.
Luck and dice rolling in games just makes me so angry. It's like Monopoly. I just can't deal with that game.
I think I'm with Nick too. I'd rather be bad at a game and lose a bunch of times and finally get good at it and then not lose again, or not lose unless I mess up, than just have to get lucky.
Yeah. Well, I like to rely on luck because I'm not skilled.
Like Mama always said, I'd rather be lucky than good.
So, let's transition into host topics. I've got a few. Well, I've got exactly one because I'm only one host, so I only get one host topic. So are any of the three of you particularly excited about your host topic?
I am.
Aaron's real excited. Come on, bring it on, Aaron.
Okay, so mine actually kind of does transition pretty well from one of my points about Final Fantasy XI, and that is the gamer community, and we all have played games, team-oriented games online or whatever at this point, and just about all of us at some point or another have been frustrated with teammates, or we've encountered people that were new to the game, and how we can appropriately, how to distinguish between people that are trying to be helpful and people that are just being rude and, or trolling, as it were, people in games.
Well, this automatically takes me to League of Legends because it's the #1 competitive game out there right now. I don't care what statistics you want to throw at me. League of Legends is the #1 competitive game. And in the case of League of Legends, it's kind of tough to tell the difference. But once you get to a certain point in the matchmaking system, once you get certain height, the trolls start to kind of disappear. And once you're at the point that I'm at, you pretty much treat everyone as if they're not going to be a troll. Like, I know I don't do this 100% of the time, and John would be the first one to attest to the fact that I don't do this 100% of the time, but you should automatically assume that the person is being reasonable. Like, if there's a person that's an idiot, you should assume that he is trying to do the best that he can, despite whatever gameplay evidence that there is. Because you don't learn anything. If you assume that he's an idiot, you don't learn anything from that person, and you never get better. If everybody's an idiot and you're the only one that's intelligent, then you're never going to get better at the game, because anything that anyone says, oh, he's just stupid, he doesn't know what he's talking about. So you have to assume that everyone knows what they're talking about, or else there's no point. John, I know you've got opinions on this.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, once you figure out, you have to assume that they know what they're talking about at the beginning. But then as soon as they start just being toxic, I guess is the best. I found that the best way to deal with them is to ignore them. Is to either mute them or whatever.
Yeah, well, I'm not talking about like how you deal with trolls. I mean, my question, my point of topic is how to identify the difference between somebody that is trying to help you and somebody that is just trying to make fun of you. And then also, if you are a person that is trying to be helpful, how do you avoid sounding like a troll? How do you get your help across to someone that you are trying to help without, like in a way that where it might actually be listened to? Because a lot of people like to, like they encounter so many trolls that just anybody that's talking to them in game is a troll and not worth listening to. Does that make more sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it seems like I was talking about this with Weasel just a couple days ago with Nathan. Sorry. It's an attitude thing. If someone says it, obviously it's very easy to see that someone's a troll if they throw an insult in there. If they call you an idiot or more or something like that, then you can assume that they're not trying to be helpful.
Of course.
And the best way to demonstrate that you're not just trying to insult them is to, I don't know, be a gentleman, I guess is the best way to put it. But I can't think of a specific way to say that. Maybe
say,
asking if
hey,
an off advice
you are valid in your role that you're playing in this game. Say, like, toss them a fucking compliment. I know it sounds fucking stupid, but even if they're an idiot, toss them a compliment about how they're playing their role. Be like, I respect that you are playing this role, but if you could do this thing better in that role, say, I'm a jungler. Hey, I like that you play, or not that I'm a jungler. Say, I'm a support. I like that you play support in League of Legends because so many people are afraid to play a support. But if you could throw more wards during this section of the game, I would be able to use that more effectively to gank your lanes. Or I could take more control over red and blue buff during this section of the game. Be specific and make sure that you compliment something about the way they play, and they will listen to you much more effectively.
They also have to be willing to listen, it seems like.
Yeah,
I mean,
if they're fucking not willing to listen, nothing you say is going to help.
By the way, Weasel, drink 3 times.
I will drink 3 times because I love my brother so much.
And one of the things that, one of the reasons that this topic got spawned is because there was a time that Nathan and I were playing, and somebody said something, and it was directed at me, and we actually sat and we talked about it after the game, about whether or not he was trying to be helpful or if he was just trying to be a dick. And ultimately, the conclusion came down, he was on our team. and assuming male, it was a male, masculine sounding gamer tag. I suppose it could have been female, but I don't remember the gamer tag. I just remember that it was a masculine sounding gamer tag.
So he wants to win.
So he's on our team, but everything that he said to me was in all chat, which ultimately led me to the conclusion that he was not trying to be helpful. Because if he was trying to be helpful, he would not have broadcast what he felt that I was doing wrong to the enemy team.
So he doesn't want to be helpful to you. He just wants to be fucking mad.
Yeah.
I'll drink
No, he wants people to know he's mad. Is what he's trying to do.
Yeah.
He wants the other team to know that he's. He wants
the other team to acknowledge that he isn't the cause of the team losing. Is that about right?
Yeah. So
talking in all chat.
Yeah.
It's cruel. If you're angry.
Yeah. Well, in the it's one thing. Okay, say, there have been plenty of times when I've encountered somebody on the enemy team that obviously needed a little bit of help, and the only way to talk to that person is in all chat. So it's the only time that you can. And of course, if you're the opponent, it is doubly hard to come across in a way that sounds like you're actually trying to be helpful. And as we've established, I feel like that has a lot to do with your approach. If you're, the way in which you approach the person and the subject, like, hey, I see you doing this, and if you phrase something in the form of a question too, like, hey, like, I don't play that character, I see you doing this, does this actually work for you? Especially when obviously you've used that to kill them like several times, might be effective, might not, I don't know.
Asking a question is a great tool to making the other person feel like they haven't done something wrong. Like, if you know exactly what the other person's doing wrong, asking a question about whether or not that thing is best is a great way to go about it to make it seem like you're not hostile.
It's also because you're not like imposing anything. You're not saying, "Nah, you're doing that wrong." You're asking them. You're validating their opinion at the same time as trying to help them, so they can't construe it as you being an asshole.
It's a fantastic thought question, Aaron. I'm actually super impressed. That might be better than mine this month.
Well, of course it is. It was mine, and yours is yours. I have to be better.
I will destroy you with my fists and my penis.
See, and we have just illustrated how not to talk to someone if you are trying to be helpful.
John, you got anything? Are you ready for your question of the month?
I wasn't sure whether to talk about whether the season 3 rank changes in League of Legends were a good idea, or whether story was important to a video game.
Oh, Jesus. Jesus,
exactly.
Both of them are pretty good. Let's move on and let you decide more carefully. I am going to talk about my question, which I think is pretty good. AAA games we have seen failing time after time. Not like consistently, but a lot of old school AAA games like Medal of Honor, Darksiders, other various AAA games that you can think of, have been failing over and over again. And I wanted to think about whether or not it's for specific reasons, such as AAA games cost too much money. And as a result, is there a space in gaming today for AA games? We've got single A games, which are, indie games and whatnot, that are very low budget. Whether or not we can produce games for, consoles and PC that are lower budget than AAA games and higher quality than single A games. Will gamers buy that sort of thing?
Do you have an example?
An example of a AA game? Psychonauts is a good example of a AA game. Psychonauts is an old school, but a good example of a game that is a higher budget than single A games as we see them now.
And Psychonauts was a pretty cool game.
Psychonauts is cool. I played the shit out of some Psychonauts.
I suppose my thought on this is that gamers are gonna buy what they like, and they're not gonna buy what they don't like, no matter how much money was spent on it. there you do wind up with your consumers that are like, I'm going to support indie games, and so they're gonna, almost no matter the quality, they're gonna go and they're gonna look at the indie games and they're gonna spend time looking there. And then the AAA games have this budget, which also usually includes some marketing, so those are going to be in the eyes of the public a little bit more. And I would think that the AA games would have, basically wouldn't have the pull of either side. So they would be more word of mouth, which in this day and age, word of mouth is a really powerful advertisement tool. So I would say yes. I would say that those are a very, very viable um, industry. That would be a viable industry.
The real problem with the AAA games is they spend so much money that they go into a huge amount of debt before the game even comes out. And I'm thinking that a lot of the AAA IPs could benefit from cutting back the cost and trying to produce as a AA space, which doesn't exist right now.
I think we're talking about double A's, and we don't really have any at the moment, but I think we're going to see them in the next few years, like things that have been backed on Kickstarter. A lot of them have got quite a bit of money gone into it, but it's not the same amount that a AAA has got. And you're not going to call it an indie either, because an indie is something that like one or two guys make in their like spare time or in their office or whatever when they're doing something else. So an indie game's like really low budget. It's something that you or I could make if we were good at making a game. But a lot of things on Kickstarter look like they're going to be double A games, so we'll probably see it in the next few years and see if that works or not, because AAA games are costing too much and they've got competition from indie games which cost nothing. So yeah,
It'll be interesting in the future. We will see whether or not my prediction, my question will have an answer. Well, it'll have an answer, but whether or not it'll be yes or no, we'll find out. John, any opinions, or do you have your question finished?
I'm not sure if it's gonna make if we can make a ruling on this at all. At this point, I think it's gonna come down to, I mean, you see a lot of crap indie games, you see a lot of crap AAA games. It's got to be a good game regardless. I'm kind of with Aaron on this one. People are only gonna buy with it. People are only gonna buy a game if it's a good game. Well, that's not even close to true. There's lots of crap games out there that you can buy, but
I do understand your point. People
like.
are going to be interested in the thematic elements that they're interested in.
I would be very happy to see more games that didn't cost $60 right off the bat. That's why people love Steam, is because the costs are down low, and Steam has shown that buying games for cheap is a good thing for both sides of the equation. Their sales go through the roof when they put their games on that. So
Humble Bundle is another good example. Basically, you sell your games for a price that people can afford, you will probably make more money, just in general.
I think it'd be a good idea to throw the game up there. If it's a top quality AAA game, throw it up there for $60 for 3, 4 months, 6 months, whatever, for an entry for the beginning period. So if you want to play from the beginning, you got to pay the full price. But then after that, you knock it down to 40 or 30 or something like that. And that brings in the people who aren't necessarily so gung-ho about the game, who aren't fanatics, who aren't critics and professional players. People who are like, oh, maybe I'll try something new. Maybe I've got an extra $30 to spend on a game. Maybe I'll try this out. 60 is a daunting price to pick up a game you've never played before.
I feel like that anyone who isn't aiming at being an indie game aims at the quality of a AAA game. And I think that there is some sort of middle ground between indie games and AAA games that isn't being used. Not just in price point, but in quality level. People aren't trying to aim for a middle ground quality level. People are like, we either need to be everything huge, explosive, big game of the AAAs, or we need to aim for one very simple mechanic and just expounding on the simple mechanic as long as we can until we run out of money. I feel like there's somewhere in between there where we can pick sort of a semi-simple mechanic and really flesh out the details of that game like Portal. The original Portal was really, really fleshed out, simple mechanic. It wasn't set at an indie game price point. It was like some student built it as a part of a larger project. If we could really, really sort of expand on that sort of niche, I think that things could be a better place for video gaming. I just don't feel like that the current model of AAA or single A is something that we can live on forever. At some point, we're going to need something else. So, Nick, I haven't asked you, do you have a host topic that is prepared for discussion?
I do. And it kind of connects pretty well to this one. It's, is having Steam and other things like that with super cheap games, like new games, like, I got DMC for £12, which is like $20, like 3 days after it was released. Is that actually a good thing for the games? Like, it's a good thing for the games industry, and it's a good thing for the consumers if you're just looking at it from numbers. But I feel that it does cheapen the experience of having a game. Like, a lot of games we've been talking about, like, I have Legend and Grimrock, and I haven't played it. I've had it for ages. It's things like that which wouldn't have happened a few years ago. Is that a good thing that I own these games, but I'm not playing them? Because for me, having a game is like just like whatever. I've got a game nowadays. Like before, when I'd buy a game, I'd sit down with the game and I'd look at it first, and I'd like look at manuals and things, and I'd put it in my console, and then I'd play it for a really good amount of time. Nowadays, I don't really get that, and I feel like the experience of having a game is being cheapened by the fact that it's so easy to get hold of a game. Like, if you went to the cinema and going to, like, a movie theatre cost, like, $3, it would just be, like, whatever, but it's still a special experience to go to the cinema because of the price and because it's not something you do every day. Is it good that games are so easy to get and so cheap for, like, a AAA game?
I have a pretty strong opinion about this, so I'm going to lead right in. I feel that when a game is cheaper and less expensive to get a hold of, you wind up with more advertising because of the world being as open as it is now. Whereas before, when we were younger, you had your circle of friends to talk to, where you would say, okay, this is when like Grand Theft Auto 3 was a thing, the first 3D Grand Theft Auto, and you were like, oh yeah, and I went into the store and I found a sledgehammer and I found out like you could use it as a weapon, you could hit people with it. That was the way word of mouth worked before. Now we've got the internet being this huge multimedia hub where the cheaper the game is, the more people get a hold of it, the more people make videos about it or whatever about it, talk about it on a social networking situation, and you wind up with more people playing it because more people heard about it, because more people made videos about it, and the more people that heard about it make more videos about it, and it proliferates. So that's my opinion. The less expensive and the easier the access is to the game, the more actual news you have about it.
I think you could link this back to your topic again, because I think this would lead more to AA games, because I've got a lot of AAA games that I just haven't even played. I've just got them on like a Steam sale because the price is so good that it's just like, if you don't buy it, you are an idiot, right? And I've got these, and to play them, to really appreciate a AAA game like Mass Effect or something, you really have to spend a long amount of time playing it and getting into the story and getting engrossed in it. And for me, if I've bought something for like $4, it's not worth. Like, I'm not going to be spending all that time on something that's like $4 because I've played like the first like 5 minutes of it and I'm like, oh yeah, I've got my $2 worth now, I can go move on to the next game. So having a medium between an indie game and a AAA game could be really good, because you could go in and out of a game and it's cheaper, and it's also made cheaper, and you get a more satisfying experience more quickly. But it's not an indie game, it's not just a little bite-sized thing, it's a bit more.
So it's more worth your time than a super indie game, because it higher quality than a super indie game, but the financial point is more worthwhile to your average, multimedia consumer. There's a lot to be said for the psychology behind that.
There's a TED talk on that topic, actually.
Probably. There's a TED topic on every goddamn topic.
That was the first TED talk I ever watched. Was about the, that one guy went around and he, basically he just tried all this really expensive stuff.
I remember that one.
Yeah, I can't remember it right now, like which one that one actually was, but it was. I mean, a lot of the stuff
he talked about like super high, expensive wines and Kobe beef and $300 jeans, and essentially, he showed a study that said that if people pay more for a game, they're generally more happy with it. That regardless of the actual quality of it, they labeled the same wine at 3 different prices, and people rated the higher priced wine better. So,
because I'm getting that feeling like that like general stereotype of like rich people not being satisfied with anything because they can get everything. I'm feeling that way with games at the moment because I'm not rich in any way, shape, or form, but I just have so many games that I'm just like, whatever, a new game or whatever. And I play like the first few levels and just like, I'm done with it. And like, that's not how it used to be when games were more expensive. I used to like really appreciate my games, and I don't that much anymore. And I just think it's interesting.
I do wonder whether or not the children of our generation, say people who are like, 8 years old right now, and really want to play some games, if they have the same value of games as we did when we were 8.
Console games are still expensive though. That's a weird thing, because I was looking at like the Wii U and I was like, oh, I might be interested in this. And then I looked at the games, and the same games that you're getting on PC for like 75% off are full price, really expensive games on there. And there's not many children playing on PC because it's just harder.
That's so weird to me. I wanted a PC more than anything when I was a youngin', and I finally got one, and I broke it, and I fixed it, and I broke it, and I fixed it, but I still had all those free games, those freeware flash games. I feel like if I was 8 right now, I would be pretty much in touch with shit. John, come on, man. Come on, give us your topic.
You want my topic?
I want your topic.
Well, okay, so let's talk about LoL for a minute then. League of Legends. Essentially what they've done in Season 3 for the ranking changes is that they've nearly just stolen the StarCraft ranking system. They made it split into divisions. They used to have just an ELO system where you'd have a single number. You'd have 1,000 ELO or something like that, which means that, somewhere between 0 and 2,300 or something like that, you're ranked among everybody. Now you have divisions where I'm in Bronze 3, I think it is, or Bronze 2, and you're ranked with another 50 people, and there's about 20 divisions, give or take, so you can move up in increments. Well, it gives you a goal, an immediate goal. Everybody I've talked to seems to be very excited about it, but there's also a downside where that if you can drop down divisions by just losing a couple games immediately after you've gotten into the new division. And then you have to go through this process all over again to start up and get back up to the next division again. You have to win a best of 3 to move up to the next division after you've earned 100 points. So essentially, it's a little easier to go up by 1 or 2 points, but you can drop by 100 points in just a game or two with no problem at all. I just wonder if it's... if you guys played rank at all, do you guys know how you feel about the system?
I got my opinions pretty much locked down. And I will now talk about them because reasons. So here's the story. It's pretty easy for you to move up. It's also pretty easy for you to move down. The idea is that they've shortened the list of people that you attribute to your obstacles. Say, okay, I'm bronze ranked. We're still in the old ELO ranking. I am at 1,100 ELO. I have no idea how many games I have to win to get to silver ranking. There's no way to quantify that because it's overall the entire the entire amount of people playing the game. With the new system, I can see, here I am in Bronze 2. I have to beat this many people. I have to get this many points to get up to... I have to beat this many points to be eligible to get up to Bronze 1. I can see that. That removes a barrier for entry. All of a sudden, I know exactly what I've got to do to get exactly this reward. Whereas before, it was completely obscure and nobody knew exactly what it was I needed to get to whatever I needed. So, what they're trying to do is they're trying to remove the apprehension from playing ranked. They're trying to make it so that each individual player is okay with just, alright, I'm going to go ahead and play some ranked. I'm not scared anymore. I was never scared to begin with, obviously. That's why I played so much ranked before. But, it's a clever system. They've just removed a number and made it to be much smaller and much more quantifiable. So I'm cool with it. I think it's a good idea. I think it's a clever plan, even though it doesn't actually change all that much. Aaron, thoughts? You played some.
Well, to be perfectly honest, I never really played that much ranked in League of Legends, and my current I love League of Legends. It's a great game. I want to go back to playing it competitively and all of that, but right now I have been avoiding playing because it feels like every time I get on there I have to play competitive, and I just don't. I'm not feeling that right now. I don't feel like being competitive in that game, and so is why I'm not playing it as much. Changing up the system, I didn't see anything wrong with the one before. I don't see anything wrong with the one they're doing now. So, I don't know. Why change when there really was no real problem with the first one. And I don't know. I'm kind of meh. I don't care. Either system is fine with me. I liked being ranked against everyone. I like any game that gives me stats where I can automatically compare myself to everybody else that plays the game. I wish it gave me more of that information on the non-ranked stuff, but
They did a test on that, actually. They gave people an ELO that you could read. ELO, whatever, I don't know what it means, but they gave people a ranking on normal, and then people treated it like ranked. They started playing super not stressed out.
Yeah, well, I don't want necessarily an ELL ranking. What I want is like an ability to look and go, okay, well, like I have this many kills, like whatever. I've killed this many minions. I've done this. How does that
information?
Yeah, how does that compare to the average player?
Stat by stat information is logical. Why don't they put that in everything?
That's a better question than the one I originally started with. I would like to start an internet campaign, petition the White House and everything for more information about the games we play. I want what's effective. We just played a tower defense game. What was that one, Weasel? With the Yogscast did a thing on it.
Sanctum.
Sanctum, exactly. Thank you. Where at the end of the match, it was a first-person tower defense game. So you have weapons, you can shoot things, and you can also build towers. At the end of the game, I didn't know which one of my towers had done the most damage. I didn't know how many enemies were killed by which type of tower. I had no idea which ones were worth spending money on. All I had was the objective: did I win or did I lose? And you have to play a ton of games to figure out. I wanted to just start playing games where I only built this one type of tower and see how far I got. I built this type of tower and see how far I got. It would have taken a dozen games just to learn the information that I would have gotten if they'd have just laid out the stats for me at the end of the game. I want to see that more in every game I ever play. Okay, Amen. I'm done with my rant.
I agree.
Yeah, me too. Sure.
It's one of my favorite things about World of Tanks. Is the amount of stat keeping that's in it. Granted, I wish there were more stats. One of my absolute favorite things about the game is it actually has a thing that tells you where you sit in comparison to everybody else who has driven whatever tank that you're on. And that to me is fantastic. It keeps track of so many stats. I thoroughly enjoy that particular portion of the game.
I think that's everybody, right? We've all got our game topic in.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Fantastic. So, Game Club, I need to talk about this. It is a silly little name. I can't come up with a better one. It's like a book club, except for video games. And over the next month, we will all be playing a game called Antichamber, which is an excellent little puzzle game that messes with your mind like an Escher painting. And come next month, we will chat about it. We'll talk about our experiences with that game in the place of the Games of the Month section. It's a game...
It looks exciting.
The idea is, it's a game that is worth everyone seeing. There's going to be mostly old school games. This time it's one that's a little bit more relevant to the time period because I think that this game is actually relevant forever.
I think it's a fairly new concept. I mean, it's not a new concept. It's sort of like Portal meets, what was that, Amnesia, The Dark Descent, where it just kind of like, what you see isn't really what's happening. Stuff could change just by looking at something or by moving forward a couple steps, and all of a sudden things are different. It's very... I've played 2 minutes of it, and I'm already excited to play more.
It's ambient and tricksy. There's a quote. The developer was telling me how the game would try and trick me while the game was tricking me. so have fun
and of course
with that.
They just drop you in. When you start the game, you start in this room. Like, there's no menu. You just start in this room, and the game has begun. There's a timer on the wall. So, good luck.
There is one more thing I wanted to give everybody a chance to. Does anybody want to plug anything? Of course, Nick has Game Bloops.
That's not the name of the channel.
I'm
It's youtube.com.
I am complete. I drank way more than anyone else at this point. I've got an excuse right now.
I can see that being a fact.
I might have targeted a little bit with my drinking rule, but I'm not sorry for it at all.
I'm starting a Twitch channel. I'm going to be showing WoW videos. I'm not particularly good, but I'm going to start climbing through the ranks. Frets00, FRETS 00 is the name of my channel. So
I've got Kniferandring, youtube.com/Kniferandring, NYFORANDRING. If you feel like searching for it, it's 80 Proof Gaming. That's the best way to find it, I'm sure.
If they're listening to this video, aren't they on your channel?
Yes, that is technically correct.
Okay, I was just wanting to clarify
the
that.
best kind of correct.
Okay, I was just saying. I don't currently have a channel. I will eventually, which won't be gaming related at all.
Right, he is gonna have a channel somewhere.
Yeah, but that's not gonna happen until I'm significantly more settled in and
I'll
the weather
put a link
warms
down
up. So
when you got it set up.
yeah. So, but I would like to plug. Bacardi Oakheart rum, because nobody has heard of it. Even the bartenders that
it's
serve.
It's the 70 proof Bacardi, right?
I'm pretty sure that
Bacardi's
it's
normally 70 proof. What the?
We have it in England.
I'm pretty sure it's 80 proof actually,
80 proof, which would make sense since this is 80 proof gaming.
It's really a wonderful rum. It's my favorite one I've discovered so far. It has real mellow tones to it. It mixes really well with Sprite. I'm sure it probably mixes really well with everything. But that's my plug. Bacardi Oakheart rum. Enjoy.
Bloop Show. That's what I wanted to say earlier.
It is.
Bloop Show. YouTube.com/Bloop Show. Is that right?
Yeah. And if you want my non-gaming shit, it's youtube.com/Nick Patient.
Gotcha. All right, I will see everyone next month. I'm just gonna invite everybody, and whoever shows up is whoever shows up. So I'll see you next month, Internet.
Yes! I got a brain. Finally! Now your ears won't whistle so much when the wind blows.